what is being considered as a very massive scene. It's very large. You have where the shooting took place at 2nd and Central, but as people fled from the area, there's evidence and other things that may have gotten caught on their shoes, kicked around. So it's a very large scene. We're very fortunate to have the support of the FBI, but we're not going to leave any stones unturned. We're going to look at every angle of this throughout the investigation and try to figure it out. As far as ages of the victims, the Lake County coroner will hopefully be here for our 3 o'clock press briefing, and we'll be able to provide some information. What I know as of now, several of the deceased victims unfortunately perished at the scene, and it sounds like one of them was transported to an area hospital where they perished. Again, this is preliminary information changes, especially when there's close to 30 people transported to various hospitals.
About the type of rifle that was recovered?
What I'll say right now is it was a high-powered rifle. I can't go into details just yet. We will release that information as soon as we can. We walk a fine line with any criminal investigation where we don't want to provide too much external information that could negatively impact what our detectives are doing.
Do you know if the targets were, the people targeted were marching in the parade or spectators or specific groups?
Yeah, it's a very sad situation where it sounds like spectators were targeted, and even those that were marching through. The parade was approximately 3/4 of the way through when the shooting occurred. So very random, very intentional, and a very sad day.
Can you tell us anything more about the effort?
It's still in the city, or how far is it from?
We are working really hard to try to pinpoint where they could be. It's. I don't want to give bad information. He could be in the city. He could be somewhere else. But we're looking into it.
At this time, NIPUS, the county's office.
Yeah, it's a very large conglomerate of law enforcement that's working together, hand in hand. The Lake County Major Crime Task Force and the FBI are leading the criminal investigation into this, along with Highland Park Police. They are very involved. Highland Park Police led the initial incident response and incident command when this was all rapidly unfolding. As far as the search for the individual, we have enlisted the help of several federal partners. We have the state police, we have NIPUS, we have other SWAT teams that are on the scene here, and all working together to further that aspect as well.
What sort of progress has law enforcement made in possibly identifying the suspect?
We're working as hard as we can. I mean, and we want to make sure that the information we're receiving and putting out is accurate, and that when the individual is apprehended, it's the correct individual. They're working hard.
As far as the structure of the building, can you tell us how he was able to get on top of the roof and make a quick escape?
I might be able to provide that a little later. I don't have that right now. Let's do a couple more questions.
I'm just getting here, just the name, the title.
Sure. My name is Christopher Covelli, Covelli, and I'm the spokesman for the Lake County Major Crime Task Force.
You said earlier that it was up to individual communities to decide whether it was safe for them to hold gatherings today. Is that because so many police resources are here, or just because he could be?
Well, I think there's a couple reasons, a couple ways communities are going to look at it. Number one, you have a tragic mass act of violence that was random here today at a community event where people were gathered to celebrate, and the offender still has not been apprehended thus far. So, could this happen again? We don't know what his intentions are at this point. So certainly we're not sure of that. And on the other hand, I think there's a lot of communities that are not looking forward to celebrating after something like this happens right in their backyard.
How many people have been dying at this point?
As of right now, the information I have is there are 6 deceased. 6.
And nothing more about
reports of people in the crowd helping those who were injured?
There were, and I'm sure they will come forward in the days to come, but there were a number of heroic actions by members of the community, by police, by first responders that rushed in and immediately tended to the victims, tried to get them help. More to come on that later. Right now our focus is on the investigation and catching this guy.
There was a report of a child separated from his parents, I believe. Any updates there in terms of families needing to reunite?
So Highland Park Police has established a family and friends reunification post, and that's at the Highland Park Police Department. So anybody that's looking for somebody or anybody that got lost or separated during the event, they can go there, the reunification that's happening there. Again, folks.
Because people are sheltering in place at nearby businesses there. Are they still being told to stay there?
Some people, business owners, employees of businesses have waited in their buildings for police escort. Right now, the SWAT team is escorting people out of those buildings, getting them to safety, and being there for them so they feel comforted as they're leaving the facility. But 3 o'clock, we'll be back. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
All right, Chris Cavelli there with the Lake County Major Crimes Task Force giving us an update there, adding to the fact that all the law enforcement are aggressively looking for the perpetrator involved in all this, and they are asking very clearly, Liz and Sam, for any video that people may have taken, businesses with their surveillance cameras and so on. And I think it's very important to point out here that if you'll remember back to the Boston Marathon shooting, or bombing, I should say, one of the ways they were able to crack that was the incredible influx and their ability to deal with this volume of video and still photography that came in. So that is something to bear in mind, and how people can, when they're wondering how can they help in this situation, that's what they can do. They can see what they might have recorded.
And Ravi, we did learn a little bit more from investigators there about the firearm that may have been involved. Investigators referred to that as a high-powered rifle, but they were careful to say they cannot give any more information on that weapon at this point. Our ABC 7i team has been told that the Department of Alcohol, Tobacco and Firearms is tracking the purchaser of that firearm that they say will tell them a lot about where this gun was purchased, when it was purchased, who it was purchased by. And investigators did also tell us there that the evidence of the firearm was located on a rooftop, confirming that that did begin on a rooftop. They say that rooftop is now secured. They said police ran toward the sound of gunfire, but by the time they got there and identified that gunfire, they believe the suspect had taken off.
That's right. They said this was random but intentional. Random but intentional. They said it appears that the shooter was targeting spectators of this parade, targeting spectators. We're going to join Christian Picos. He is live at the scene now. Christian, we're checking in with you. What have you learned?
Yeah, so we did just hear, as you guys know, from the Lake County Crime Task Force's Chris Cavelli. He gave us a little bit of new information about those first minutes after the Highland Park Police Department arrived on scene. This all happening just around 10:15 this morning. We're also starting to hear stories this morning of community members who were just trying to enjoy the 4th of July parade, responding to help others who were injured in that gunfire. We did learn that there were victims who were pronounced dead at the scene. Some were also pronounced dead at a local hospital. It's also important to point out that they did announce that there is a reunification center at the Highland Park Police Department for families. So if you live in the area and are trying to find somebody who was at the parade earlier this morning, that might be a place to check just to make sure that they are okay. We are also learning that there are some businesses in downtown Highland Park that have employees still sheltering in place as we speak. We know that there are some SWAT teams working with those employees to help escort them out of the downtown area safely. But of course, this is still, guys, a very active situation. They are still looking for this gunman at this hour. Law enforcement did say they are making progress on hopefully identifying who this gunman was, but they are hesitant to release any sort of specific information just because they don't want to compromise the integrity of the investigation. But of course, let's break down all that critical information one more time. They're looking for a white man they believe to be between 18 and 20 years old, with long black hair. They say he was wearing either a white or blue t-shirt at the time of that shooting. They are asking everybody in the area to shelter in place. And I think the difficult piece of information for me to really understand and wrap my head around right now is there's really no word yet on how large this investigation is. We know that tons of law enforcement agencies are working hand in hand right now to help apprehend the suspect, but they haven't said just where this suspect could be at this hour. So if you live nearby, if you live on the North Shore or even into the city of Chicago, they are recommending that you shelter in place at this hour. We're also told that we are hearing from the Lake County coroner at around 3 o'clock. We're going to get a new news conference then. That's in about 40 minutes or so. So, guys, we're going to stay on scene, of course, right here at the Highland Park Fire Department, working to get more information.
And, Christian, we're hoping to learn more about some of those 6 victims when we hear from the Lake County coroner sometime around 3 o'clock this afternoon. But certainly investigators did indicate that they are aggressively seeking this suspect, that they also described as being very discreet and somehow able to get away from the scene in all of that chaos, before investigators were able to get to that person, Christian pointed out that there are people in that downtown Highland Park area around 2nd and Central, where they believe that shooting began, that are still sheltering in place, that are currently locked inside their own places of business. They're doing exactly what investigators have told them to do. Investigators, likely behind the scenes, have a little bit more information about this gunman than they are indicating to us. But certainly they're seeking that person based on that description they put out earlier. A little bit more information about the high-powered rifle. And just to recap, they said that this happened about 10:15 this morning. That's when shots were initially fired. And they said at that point, the Highland Park 4th of July parade was about 3/4 of the way through. Investigators have not pointed to any motive. They also have people going through social media trying to find out if this was perhaps planned or this was discussed on the internet. But we are waiting to get some more information. Perhaps it seems like when we heard from investigators there that things had progressed quite a bit, you know, in just the hour or so that we had heard from them. Samantha.
Certainly. And, you know, we do have Mayor Kawash, who I believe is still at the Highland Park Hospital, and we're going to take him live. Mayor, is there any new information that you've learned? Have you been able to talk to any of the victims' families? What can you tell us?
Yeah, still the same information for now. We are waiting to find out from the hospital where they are redirecting these families as of right now, because the entrances all are essentially blocked off by police or security at this point. So you mentioned, Christian mentioned that they are redirecting people to the Highland Park Police Department if they're looking for any possible victims, any family, friends. So as of right now, the hospital still quiet. We do know 24 patients were being treated here. 5 had to be transported to the Evanston Hospital. As of right now, those numbers are still the same. Of course, the 6 confirmed deaths at this point. So the hospital dealing with a number of patients from this shooting. And I've just reached out to the hospital. We're waiting to hear back if they're taking in any other patients, maybe blocking anything off at this point. But it appears to be all hands on deck inside that hospital, and we're just waiting to learn some more.
And Mayor, there certainly have to be many desperate family members there, desperate friends, people who just came to that hospital because they heard perhaps here that that's where injured people had been taken. And certainly there was no way for hundreds of people to know if their loved one may have been among those people. So have you seen any family members arriving there? I know you said it's been pretty quiet, but had heard anything indicating, you know, they might know family members inside?
Yeah, we've seen a few cars come here and about, but again, police really coordinating that effort for now, and any cars that come by you don't really notice because they're blocking off these entrances for now. So we're waiting to see if any more families pull up, but right now it appears that the police have control of that and have been redirecting them, but we'll keep you updated.
And Mayor, certainly we also learned from investigators when they spoke just a few minutes ago that one person died either on the way to the hospital or there at the hospital. There were at least 5 people that died on the scene, one person that may have died at the hospital, and people being treated at some other hospitals as well. 24 people injured in that shooting this morning is just astounding.
That's absolutely correct, and we were told about some of those injuries just now that the conditions really range. You have some in critical, some in good condition, so these numbers could certainly change. The 24 people transferred here to the hospital, many of those injuries were gunshot wounds, but the hospital also tells us that other people were injured just from the chaos that ensued after that shooting. Of course, we've seen the descriptions of that scene, just a lot of blood on the ground. The scene stretches for blocks around Highland Park in the downtown area with empty chairs and strollers. So really just a chilling scene there as people continue to try to find victims and some family members.
And Mayor, that was one thing investigators pointed to at the end of that news conference, talking about how massive this scene is. You have the center of the scene where they were able to find bullet casings from where that shooting began, but